Welcome back to our channel. Everybody remembers the dress, that bold red gown that made 37 headlines in newspapers. However, nobody knew why Reba McEntire actually wore it. She is now spilling all the beans, including the family issues and the arguments with Nashville officials, as well as the agonizing truths she concealed for decades. From advocating for LGBT rights to losing millions in a divorce, this is the tale of how the good girl became the most audacious rebel in country music. On March 28, 1955, in the tiny Oklahoman hamlet of McAllister, Reba McEntire was born. She came from a well-known rodeo family and was the third of 4 children. In 1957, her father, a champion steer-roper, took home his first world championship. In 1958 and 1961, he added 2 more titles to his collection. However, the McEntires did not live in luxury despite their success. Their first home was a little 3-room house without indoor plumbing. Reba once claimed that until she was in the 5th grade, they didn't even have a phone. It taught her how to work hard, even if life was simple and difficult. In order to provide for her family, Reba's mother, Jacqueline, gave up her aspirations to become a country music star. Nevertheless, she instilled her passion for music in her children. It was she who taught them to sing together on the long rides to rodeos. The beginning of Reba's amazing musical career was those family sing-alongs. On their 7,000-acre ranch in Chalk, Oklahoma, back home, life was anything but simple. Reba began assisting with livestock roundup at the age of 6. By 7 o'clock, she was working long days, beginning before dawn and ending after sunset. There was more than livestock on the property. On their property, the family also operated a rock quarry, sold timber, and even discovered natural gas. The Rocky Hills had earned the area the nickname Sorryland from the neighbors, but the family was able to persevere when things became difficult thanks to the gas discovery. The job, however, never stopped. When Reba joined the singing McEntires in 9th year with her siblings Paquette and Susie, music began to play a larger role in her life. They won first place in a 4-H talent event where they made their stage debut. They performed a wide range of music, from pop favorites to country tunes, and their performances were remarkable. The Ballad of John McEntire, one of their songs, was in homage to their grandfather. It only came in 1,000 copies. These days, it is a rare item for collectors. Reba sang alone, too. At rodeo events, she gained notoriety for singing the national anthem. She had a life-altering performance in the 1974 National Finals Rodeo. Red Steagall, a country singer, was in the audience. The uniqueness of her voice caught his attention right away. He visited Reba and her family to speak with them after the show. He proposed to assist her in launching a Nashville career. In March 1975, Reba and her mother, Jacqueline, moved to Nashville, just a few months after the rodeo. Their family farmed cattle on a ranch in Chalk, Oklahoma, but they departed. Although Jacqueline had originally aspired to be a singer, she now concentrated on supporting her daughter's career. It was a significant sacrifice. She and Reba traveled 670 miles, leaving behind her husband and other children. Unaware of what lay ahead, they packed all they could in a basic automobile and drove away. They had very little money when they first got to Nashville and had to rely on Red Steagall's contacts to get things going. Nashville life was difficult. Reba and her mother performed various jobs to make ends meet while living in tiny leased flats. Reba had both practical and emotional assistance from Jacqueline, which kept her concentrated on songwriting and auditions. In the hope that someone might hear Reba's song, they waited for hours in record label lobbies. They persevered despite the many rejections they encountered along the way. Mercury Records signed Reba to her first record contract in November 1975. Her career didn't take off right away, but it was a significant milestone. In 1976, she released her first song, I Don't Want to Be a One-Night Stand, but it didn't make it to the charts. She put out albums and singles that didn't do well during the following few years. Her greatest charting song, Sweet Dreams, only made it to number 19, while her debut album, released in 1977, peaked at number 88 on the country charts. Reba put a lot of effort into making a reputation for herself, but she was discouraged by the lack of success. Financial difficulties posed a continuous problem during these formative years. In order to cover her expenses, Reba frequently performed at tiny clubs for as low as $50 a night. Despite having a record deal, she was not making enough money to support herself. She had to borrow money from family members occasionally to keep going because recording and publicizing her songs depleted her resources. A major obstacle for Reba was to remain loyal to her country heritage. She had conflicts with her producers because Mercury Records wanted her to take on a more pop country sound. The style of her 1981 album Heart to Heart was largely influenced by polished pop. Reba thought it deviated from her true country sound, and her fans weren't on board. To her further disappointment, the album peaked at number 42 on the charts. Reba was pushed to her limit by 1982 due to the stress of financial strains and artistic disputes. She even thought about giving up singing and going back to Oklahoma to farm on her family's property. There were no big singles from her sixth album, Behind the Scene. After 8 years in Nashville with little to show for her efforts, Reba and Mercury Records split up in 1983. She was at a crossroads at the age of 28, uncertain of what lay ahead. Despite releasing song after song for 6 long years, none of them ever made it to the top of the charts. Her song Can't Even Get the Blues on January 8, 1983, was the catalyst for that adjustment. It has a fascinating backstory. The song was originally supposed to be recorded by another singer, Jackie Ward, according to Mercury Records, but Reba battled hard to record it herself since she thought it had potential. Because she was excellent at ballads, her producer, Jerry Kennedy, didn't think the song suited her voice. But still, Reba pressed. She recorded the song as a last-minute addition to her Unlimited album. In a broken-down tour bus, Reba was informed of her first #1 hit. She celebrated a significant milestone while stranded on the side of the road, demonstrating how far she had come. It was this song's lively vitality that demonstrated Reba's versatility. It remained in the top charts, establishing her position in country music for 14 weeks. Reba made a bold move in 1984 when she switched from Mercury Records to MCA Records. It wasn't an easy choice. In the event that things didn't work out, she could have made a grave error by agreeing to pay to terminate her contract with Mercury. Mercury wanted Reba to sing more pop-like songs, but she wanted to keep to classic country music, so she took the initiative. The label's president, Jimmy Bowen, whom she met at MCA, allowed her to select her own tracks. Reba listened to songwriters' demos for hours with her buddy Don Lanier. That's how she discovered the #1 hits Somebody Should Leave and How Blue. November 1984 saw the release of My Kind of Country, her debut album with MCA. It was more in line with typical country style, like Reba had desired. She was praised for remaining loyal to herself, and the record was a success. Additionally, it contributed to the 1980s trend of going back to traditional country music. Reba was at the top of the country music scene from 1984 to 1987. Her 4 consecutive wins of the CMA Female Vocalist of the Year award were a significant accomplishment. In 1984, she was shocked by her maiden victory. She was clearly surprised to take the award because she hadn't anticipated it. Her successful albums, such as Whoever's in New England and My Kind of Country, were released during this period. 8 #1 singles came from these albums. Reba became even more distinctive during this period due to changes in her tone and appearance. She searched diligently for music that suited her approach, emphasizing ballads and poignant tales that showcased her voice. One big moment came with the song, Whoever's in New England, in 1986. It combined traditional country music with modern production and became a blueprint for her future music. Her image also became more glamorous. She left behind the cowgirl look and embraced a polished, sophisticated style. Her music videos, like the one for Whoever's in New England, showed her in elegant outfits and dramatic settings. Her concerts also became more theatrical, with costume changes and elaborate performances that were rare in country music at the time. By 1987, Reba wasn't just a country singer, she was an entertainer. Her first TV concert special, Reba in Concert, aired on HBO in 1987. It showed the world her new style and solidified her place as a superstar. In 1991, something happened that changed Reba McEntire's life forever. On March 16 at 1:45 a.m., a plane carrying 7 of her band members and her tour manager crashed into Otay Mountain, just 10 miles from San Diego. The crash happened right after takeoff. Everyone on board, including the 2 pilots, died. The people who lost their lives were Chris Austin, Kirk Capello, Joey Signero, Paula K. Evans, Jim Hammond, Terry Jackson, Anthony Saputo, and Michael Thomas. They had just performed a private show in San Diego for IBM executives only hours before the crash. She had been sick with bronchitis and decided to stay behind with her husband, Narvel Blackstock, and her stylist. She planned to leave the next day. This decision likely saved her life. What made it even more haunting was that another plane carrying the rest of her crew took off just minutes later and landed safely, unaware of the tragedy. When the accident was investigated, it was found that the crash could have been prevented. The pilots made bad decisions and didn't plan the flight properly. They didn't fly high enough to clear the mountains, and one of them failed to monitor the flight. To make it worse, the pre-flight information they got didn't warn them enough about the terrain. These mistakes cost 10 lives and showed how important it is to plan every flight carefully. After the crash, Reba was heartbroken but found a way to cope through music. Just 6 months later, she released an album called For My Broken Heart. This album was her way of paying tribute to her lost friends and dealing with the pain. The title song was originally meant to be a duet with Clint Black, but Reba decided to sing it alone. The lyrics, "I guess the world ain't gonna stop for my broken heart," hit hard for her and her fans. The song went to #1 on the country charts and stayed there for 2 weeks. The album became a huge success. It was her highest charting album at that time, reaching number 13 on the Billboard 200. It even became the first album by a female country artist to go double platinum. One of the most emotional songs on the album was If I Had Only Known, which Reba said was the hardest for her to record. The song talks about the regret of not knowing it would be the last time with someone you love. Fans connected deeply with the album, and it helped Reba heal while solidifying her as a true country legend. On September 29, 1993, Reba McEntire stepped onto the stage at the CMA Awards in Nashville, wearing a dress no one could forget. It was bright red velvet, with a neckline plunging all the way to her navel, held together by a sheer panel covered in over 2,000 crystals. Designed by Sandy Spica Borchetta, it had long sleeves and a high collar, blending modesty with a daring look. Reba, known for her conservative style, shocked everyone. As she sang, "Does He Love You" with Linda Davis, the audience couldn't stop staring. The cameras had to adjust quickly, trying not to show too much on live TV. The duet won Vocal Event of the Year, but the dress stole the night. The next morning, 37 newspapers across the U.S. had headlines about it like, "Reba's Dress, a Little Red Corvette, or a Racing Mistake." The reaction to the dress spread fast. Known for being conservative, was in shock. Garth Brooks, sitting in the front row, reportedly had his jaw dropped for 30 seconds. Dolly Parton joked, "Well, honey, she just out-Dolly Dolly." Even big moments like Vince Gill winning Entertainer of the Year were overshadowed. Reba's fan mail exploded with 854 letters just about the dress. Some praised her boldness, but others were harshly critical. Radio stations held call-in polls, with one in Tulsa getting over 10,000 calls in a single day. The Country Music Association had to address the controversy, saying they supported creativity, but also understood their audience's traditional values. The dress even made it onto Entertainment Tonight, where it was called the dress that launched 1,000 water cooler conversations. Before this, Reba was known for her modest, wholesome image. Her fans admired her for being family-friendly and relatable. At award shows, she usually wore Western-style outfits or simple gowns, nothing flashy. That's why this dress shocked so many people. Some longtime fans were upset. Her fan club received 1,237 letters, with some people saying they felt betrayed. A few fans even destroyed her albums. The incident was so big that women's magazines like Good Housekeeping wrote about it, calling Reba a symbol of changing times in country music. Without meaning to, she became the face of a new debate about modesty in the industry. Reba's family also reacted strongly. Her mother, Jacqueline, and sister, Susie, were in the audience that night. Jacqueline, known for her conservative values, held Susie's arm tightly and whispered, "Oh, Susie." Backstage, the family gathered in her dressing room, and the tension was obvious. But Reba's father, Clark McIntyre, broke the silence with a joke. Looking at her dress, he asked, "Reba, did you have that dress on backward?" Everyone burst out laughing. Jacqueline pulled Reba aside, worried about the example she might be setting for young fans. She told her, "Reba Nell, you've always been a role model. What are all those little girls who look up to you going to think?" They had a long, heartfelt talk about fame and responsibility. Despite the initial shock, her family stood by her. Her brother, Pac, even joked later about wanting a similar dress for his wife at the next family event. Reba McEntire's sitcom, Reba, was a turning point in her career. It premiered on October 5, 2001, but it was originally supposed to air on September 14. That changed because of the 9/11 attacks, and the delay gave the writers time to tweak the script. This ended up helping the show connect better with audiences during a difficult time. The story was bold for its day. It focused on a woman whose husband leaves her for a pregnant dental hygienist, while her teenage daughter also ends up pregnant. At first, people worried it might upset more traditional viewers, but Reba's charm and the show's humor quickly won everyone over. It became the WB's top Friday night show, with 4 million viewers each week in its first season. When the show moved to the CW in 2006 for its final season, it stayed just as popular. By the time it ended on February 18, 2007, Reba had 125 episodes, and its finale drew 8.7 million viewers, the biggest audience in the show's history. Fun fact, Reba wasn't the first choice to play the lead role. Producers originally wanted Sally Field. When she said no, they renamed the character after Reba and gave her the role, banking on her fame as a country singer. While starring in Reba, she didn't put her music career on hold. Between 2001 and 2007, she released 4 albums, including Room to Breathe in 2003. That album hit #1 on the country charts and sold 124,000 copies in its first week. She also went on big tours, like the Room to Breathe tour in 2004, which made over $40 million. On top of that, Reba found time to perform on Broadway in Annie Get Your Gun, playing Annie Oakley in 2001. Critics loved her performance, calling it the best of the season. Even with all this going on, she scored 7 #1 hits on the country charts. During the time she was filming Reba, songs like Somebody showed that she was just as strong a force in music as she was on TV. The success of her show opened new doors for her outside music and acting. In 2005, she launched a clothing line with Dillard's, selling women's clothes, shoes, and home goods. Her line made over $200 million in 10 years. When she first started, Reba joked about not knowing much about fashion, saying she used to think Levi's were the only designer brand. In 2016, she teamed up with Cracker Barrel to create a Western-themed retail line called Rockin' R by Reba, and it sold out within weeks. Then in 2023, she opened Reba's Place, a restaurant and music venue in Oklahoma. It became a hit, attracting over 500,000 visitors in its first year. These ventures proved she wasn't just a great entertainer, she was also a smart businesswoman. In 2011, Reba was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. This was one of the biggest honors in her career. That same year, her song, Turn on the Radio, hit #1 on the charts, making her one of only 3 artists to have a #1 song the same year they were inducted. At the ceremony, Dolly Parton officially welcomed her into the Hall of Fame. Dolly joked that they both made a career pretending to be hillbillies, but they were proud of their roots. Reba gave a heartfelt speech, thanking her late mother, Jacqueline, who had always supported her dreams. She even wore her mother's wedding ring as a tribute. The Hall of Fame honor wasn't just about her music. It also recognized her impact on country music and entertainment as a whole, including her work on Reba. Not everything about her time on the show was smooth, though. Rumors swirled about drama on set. In 2005, there were reports of a fight between Reba and her co-star, Melissa Peterman, over screen time. Both denied it, but people kept speculating. In 2006, some claimed she threatened to quit unless certain cast members were fired, though producers said this wasn't true. The most dramatic moment came in 2004, when she walked off set after arguing with the writers about her character's love life. The studio lost thousands of dollars that day. Even with these stories, most of her co-stars praised her work ethic. Steve Howie, who played Van, said Reba was always professional and the first one on set. Reba McEntire married Charlie Battles on June 21, 1976, when she was just 21. Charlie was 10 years older and a former rodeo champion. At first, things seemed great, but as Reba's career grew in the 1980s, their marriage started to struggle. Reba was often away from home, and it became harder for them to stay close. In 1984, she won her first big award as Female Vocalist of the Year. Then, in 1986, she won Entertainer of the Year. That's when Charlie told her to slow down, but Reba couldn't stop chasing her dreams. She later said, "I guess I chose my career over my marriage." The divorce happened on November 11, 1987, just before Reba's 32nd birthday. It wasn't easy. Reba had been a stepmother to Charlie's 2 sons and cared about them deeply. Things also got messy because Charlie had been involved in her career. In her autobiography, Reba shared that one of the last straws was when Charlie took $400 from her purse. It wasn't about the money. It was about trust. At the same time, she released an album called The Last One to Know, and its title song felt like it matched what she was going through. After the divorce, Reba found love again. She fell for her manager, Narvel Blackstock, who used to play steel guitar in her band. They got married on June 3, 1989, on a boat in Lake Tahoe. This marriage wasn't just personal. It was a team effort. Together they built a company called Starstruck Entertainment to manage her career. Narvel already had 3 kids from his first marriage, and Reba became their stepmother. She didn't call them stepkids, though. She always said, "I claim them all." The 1990s were amazing for Reba's career. She became one of the biggest stars in country music. But her marriage to Narvel wasn't perfect. After 26 years together, they divorced. Reba later said she didn't want the divorce, but Narvel did. It was a huge change for her. Narvel walked away with half of her fortune, around $47.5 million, and Reba had to learn to manage her own career for the first time. It was a tough time, especially since rumors started that Narvel quickly moved on with a friend of theirs. In the middle of all this, Reba became a mom. On February 23, 1990, she had her son, Shelby. He was born in Nashville while Reba was at the height of her career. She wanted to be there for him, so she brought him on tour and turned her bus into a nursery. Shelby grew up with some challenges, like ADHD, but he worked hard to overcome them. He didn't follow in Reba's footsteps in music. Instead, he became a race car driver, and Reba was his biggest fan. Reba McEntire has always stood up for what she believes, even when it caused trouble for her. In April 2015, she supported same-sex marriage during an interview. She said, "I don't understand why people have a problem with it. I'm a very spiritual person, but I don't judge." Back then, many people in the country music world were still conservative, so her statement upset a lot of fans. Just 2 days later, a Facebook page called Boycott Reba McEntire appeared. Over 50,000 people followed it in 1 week. Even conservative radio host Rush Limbaugh talked about her, calling her a sellout. She also lost many social media followers, about 12% right away. Reba didn't change her mind, though. On the day same-sex marriage became legal across the US, she posted a rainbow-colored version of her logo on Instagram. It got lots of likes, 157,000, but also many angry comments. Later that year, at a concert, she invited a same-sex couple on stage to propose. Most of the crowd cheered, but around 200 people walked out. Even with all the backlash, Reba's actions made a difference. In 2018, a survey showed that 31% of country music fans said she helped them accept LGBTQ+ rights. She even inspired other country stars like Casey Musgraves to speak out. In 2020, Reba was honored with an award for being an ally to the LGBTQ+ community. Reba also speaks out about politics, which has upset some fans. After the 9/11 attacks, she performed at a benefit concert and said, "We need to stand united, not divided." Some people thought this was unpatriotic because she didn't mention military action. A bigger controversy came in 2003 when she said she didn't agree with President Bush's decision to invade Iraq. After this, some radio stations stopped playing her songs, and her album sales dropped by 18%. In 2017, she turned down an invitation to perform at President Trump's inauguration. She said, "I don't mix politics and music." This cost her a $2 million performance fee and upset some fans. Then in 2020, she supported the Black Lives Matter movement, posting, "I stand with my black brothers and sisters." While many praised her for it, over 500,000 people unfollowed her on Instagram. Even with this backlash, her album Stronger Than the Truth became her highest charting album in over 10 years. Some fans left, but others appreciated her courage. Reba has also fought against sexism and ageism in country music. In 2010, at age 54, she became the first woman over 50 to have an album debut at #1 on the country charts. But in 2015, she called out country radio for not playing songs by older female artists. She said she wanted to hear people like Trisha Yearwood and Martina McBride on the radio. This sparked a huge debate online to start a program to help women in the industry, and she became the first mentor. In 2018, she also criticized the all-male lineup for Entertainer of the Year at the CMA Awards, joking, "What's wrong with this picture?" Her words got a standing ovation and went viral. Reba has had public feuds too. In the 1990s, she criticized Garth Brooks for using flashy effects in his shows, saying she preferred to focus on the music. When Garth won an award over her, cameras caught her rolling her eyes, which became a big story at the time. In 2008, she upset Dolly Parton by covering 9 to 5 without asking for permission. Another feud happened in 2015, when a radio consultant made a sexist comment comparing women in country music to tomatoes in a salad. Reba called him out publicly, which led to big changes in the industry.